Welcome back. You're watching To The Point. This morning, the Supreme Court stayed what the press calls Arvind Kejriwal's gag order on the media. In doing so, it seems to have accused him of hypocrisy and double standards. This is also what many journalists have said, including on this very program on Monday. So how embarrassed is Arvind Kejriwal, or has the Supreme Court overreached itself? And what impact could this have on Mr. Kejriwal's attitude to the media? My guests are former Attorney General Soli Sorabji, the highly regarded Supreme Court lawyer Dushyant Dave, the executive editor of Headlines Today, Javed Ansari, and a member of the Aam Aadmi Party, Professor Kamal Mitra Chinoy. The Aam Aadmi Party, however, refused to send an official spokesperson for this discussion. Soli Sorabji, today the Supreme Court stayed the 6th May circular issued by the Delhi government, stating that ministers or any public servant who feels the press has harmed or hurt his or her reputation can report the matter to the Principal Home Secretary, who will then examine whether there is a case for criminal defamation under sections 499 and 500 of the Penal Code. Was the Supreme Court right to take this step and stay the circular, or has the Supreme Court overreached itself?
No, not overreached it. It should have stayed it, and it has stayed it. Because this circular has no meaning. It's an implicit threat to the freedom of the press and freedom of expression. I don't know why it was legally misconceived, and it shows, if I may say so, political immaturity. Kejriwal has gone to the court to invoke section 499 against people who are alleged to have defamed him. Now here he gives an indirect threat that if you say that, I'll report you. Go to the court and file a suit for defamation against them or criminal complaint. What is about the circulars? I don't understand this.
Okay.
I'm so disappointed with Kejriwal.
Dushyant Dave, when we discussed this very issue on Monday, you defended the circular on the grounds that it simply reiterated existing laws. Secondly, there were sufficient checks and balances to ensure that the existing law wasn't misused. And thirdly, you said this did not amount to intimidating or gagging the press. Today, when the Supreme Court has stayed the same circular, how do you respond to what the Supreme Court has done?
Well, I stand by what I had said on that day, Karan. And I really can't comment on the order passed by the Supreme Court, because it's for the Supreme Court to really decide. One has to respect that. It's sub judice. But I must say one thing, that the very judges who grant these kind of orders are so sensitive about any comment made about them or against them in the press, that they would not hesitate to use the power of contempt against even the press. So really, frankly, I think judges ought not to have really intervened in a matter like this, because it's something which is really, it's for the executive to decide. And as I had said that day, and I do believe that ultimately, if there is any part of journalism which is sensationalizing it, or is irresponsible, or is partisan, and stays away from the truth. What is wrong about somebody who is affected by it, or whose reputation is affected by it, from taking any legal action? I mean, Supreme Court can't grant an order that nobody can take a legal action. Even with this order, supposing tomorrow press does something which is really injurious to somebody's reputation, he would be entitled, even if he is a minister in Delhi government or an officer, to take appropriate action. And I don't think this order of the Supreme Court really come in the way of that action.
You're saying something very interesting, even though this is a sub judice matter, and I don't want to comment on what the judges have done, but you're saying that when judges are prepared to use powers as important and powerful as contempt of court against criticism that they face, they really have no right to stay an order or a circular issued by the Delhi government, which is relying upon laws that exist and which can legitimately be used. You're pointing out what sounds like, even though you haven't put it in those words, a certain double standards in the judiciary itself. Dushyant Dave?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I do agree that judges are overly sensitive themselves to what is written about them, and which they shouldn't be. although truth today is in defense against contempt.
Okay.
But, I mean, nobody really dares say, and that's why nobody has really, you know, the press, you might have, you know, some editorials written, or you might have some leading, you know, experts writing articles, but on the issues of, you know, the orders that have been passed in recent times, in cases of Mr. Amit Shah, or Ms. Jayalalitha, or Mr. Salman Khan, or even Dr. Manmohan Singh, the press has really not taken judiciary on. Why? It's because press is really afraid of the judiciary.
All right. Let's come back to the Arvind Kejriwal situation and the stay order that has been imposed by the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court pointed out that in the case brought against Arvind Kejriwal by Nitin Gadkari, Arvind Kejriwal himself was arguing that criminal defamation should be dropped from the law, that it should only be a civil, not a criminal offence. And if I can quote the judges, their words were, you can't do both things together. Come to the Supreme Court against defamation on the one hand, and then take action against the media on the other. Javed Ansari, doesn't that mean that although they haven't put it in so many words, the judges are saying to Arvind Kejriwal, this is double standards, this is hypocrisy?
They just stopped short of saying exactly that. And without doubt, it's a case of double standards, not just double standards, Karan, but it also shows a streak of intolerance. Mr. Kejriwal came riding and was helped a lot by the media at the time of the Anna agitation, and even when he was fighting Mr. Modi. Now suddenly he finds everything wrong with the media. It's a familiar story, you know, the story reinventing itself. Every time you come to power, suddenly those in power, the very first sight of criticism, you know, they are engulfed by this siege mentality, and that's perhaps what is happening to Mr. Kejriwal.
Come on, Mr. Chinoy, you're here in your individual capacity, but you are a member of the Aam Aadmi Party, and unless you're expelled, no one can deny that, but you're not a spokesman for the party. And I want to put a simple question to you. How much comfort do you take from the defense that you've heard from Dushyant Dave? Or how embarrassed are you by the fact that the judges have virtually accused your chief minister of double standards and hypocrisy? And Soli Sorabji has said that he's deeply disappointed and feels let down by Arvind Kejriwal.
Well, I don't want to get into judicial issues, because I also think there are political and ethical issues that should be examined. Number one...
No, come answer my question before you go on to other things. Which do you take comfort from? Dushyant Dave's defense, or are you embarrassed by the Supreme Court pointing out hypocrisy and Soli Sorabji saying your chief minister has disappointed him?
Well, I am embarrassed by the disappointment. I'm embarrassed by the court's judgment. Mr. Dave may well be correct in what he's saying, but I'm not a lawyer and I wouldn't know. But the ethical points I'd like to make is that as a politician who is the chief minister of Delhi, is the use of civil servants to gather material to be used for criminal or civil defamation the best use of the public exchequer and people?
In other words, this is amounting to misuse of civil servants if you're going to say to them, spend your time gathering material for civil defamation or criminal defamation cases.
Not only that, it is also asking them to do political, factional things.
Except that, to be honest, let me come in on Arvind Kejriwal's side. He's not actually asking them to do anything political. He's simply saying that if you as individuals who work for the government feel aggrieved by the way the media has covered or reported you, report it to me. I will investigate whether criminal defamation can be taken out, and if it can, I will.
No, but Karan, when you shortlist cases that should be examined, that is also a political judgment, because it's criticism of a political party.
Let me quickly, before I go to Soli Sorabji, bring in Dushyant Dave on that point, because I know we're going to lose Dushyant Dave quickly. Dushyant Dave, two quick questions. Give me short, to the point answers. First of all, how do you respond to the fact that the judges, in staying the Delhi circular, virtually accused Arvind Kejriwal of hypocrisy? They may not have put it in so many words, but when they say you can't do both things together, come to the Supreme Court against defamation on the one hand and then take action against the media on the other, that's what they're saying. So how do you respond to that he's hypocritical?
Well, you must realize one thing, that Arvind Kejriwal is not the Delhi government. He is only a chief minister. And as an individual, Arvind Kejriwal may have taken a stand which Supreme Court may have, considered or agreed to consider. But the fact is that Delhi government comprises of large number of officers and other, ministers and all. And if they feel that the media is making any kind of suggestions which are, likely to damage their reputation, then the government, Delhi government was well within its power to issue a circular.
Except
so there is a distinction between Arvind Kejriwal in his individual capacity and Delhi government as as a constitutional body. So I don't think really there is any sense of saying that there is hypocrisy about it.
All right, let me bring in Soni Sorabji on that critical point. What you're hearing is a very interesting distinction between Arvind Kejriwal, qua Chief Minister, and Arvind Kejriwal, qua an individual. And Dushyant is arguing that the stand Arvind Kejriwal took against criminal defamation in the Nitin Gadkari case was taken as an individual. The circular which his office has sent out was sent out in his capacity as Chief Minister. Don't confuse the two. Do you accept that distinction which splits one individual into two?
No, Karan, I'm sorry, I don't accept the distinction. I think it's a very specious distinction. After all, he is a Chief Minister. No question about that. And whatever circular in one capacity to other, it has a chilling effect. What I can't understand is, no one says places about the law. You have a section 499, invoke it. In a proper case, you may get even an injunction. You may not get it. But this kind of a issuing a circular and then trying to make a distinction is in his individual capacity. He's not the Chief Minister, it's not the government. I don't think that's really the heart of the matter. One thing I want to say here, I would like to differ with my good friend Dushyant Dave. Supreme Court judges have not used the contempt power when the judges have been criticized sharply, individually. We criticize the judgment in ADM Jabalpur. Only thing that come down is when you attribute ulterior motives.
All right.
There's a different part.
I understand.
But you can criticize the judgment. They've said it over and over again. Criticism of public power.
All right.
And do criticize.
I'll stop
and
you
we
there.
did do it very severely.
I'll stop you there because sadly, as I said, Dushyant Dave had to go and he's gone. He's not there to respond to the fact that you believe the distinction he's drawing is specious rather than credible. Let me then move to another aspect of this whole controversy, and I'll put it first to you, Professor Chinoy, before I come to Javed Ansari, and it's to do with the fact that there is a whole history behind this circular. 8 days earlier, Arvind Kejriwal claimed that the media had taken a supari to finish off his party. He had no evidence or proof, he simply made that assertion and left it there. Then he said that in fact he wanted the media to he wanted the public to conduct trials of the media. He even said choose 8 or 9 places and hold public trials, a bit like kangaroo courts. Is that the right way for a Chief Minister to respond to bad reportage, to prejudiced coverage?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that the Aam Aadmi Party and its leaders and members were supposed to be an alternative kind of politics. This is surely not a sign of the politics that was promised. At a Janta ka reporter meeting, someone from the audience says there should be a trial of the media, and he says very good idea, and then he says 8 to 10 places gather and we'll do this. I mean, it lacks respect for the freedom of speech and expression, which is a fundamental right. And I think especially for a party like this, which says it has a continued adherence and respect for constitution, law and morality, to do this, because after all, what are you doing? If you say that we're going to have a public trial, you are basically saying that you will choose the public and they will decide to find the media guilty.
And therefore it will be either a kangaroo court or a lynch mob even.
And it's certainly not what alternative politics is about, which we promised.
2 quick follow-up questions. In that long answer you gave me, it's a very good one, and I applaud you for being so open in your answer, but you're saying that Arvind Kejriwal is going against freedom of speech. The Chief Minister of Delhi, the national convener of your party, is going against freedom of speech and our democratic constitutional rights.
Yes, but he doesn't see it that way. That is the dangerous thing.
Worse then.
Because
he's actually breaching fundamental rights and liberties, but doesn't realize he's doing so.
And also a large section of the party is being misled. So there again what will happen...
He's misleading the party.
And there will be again a cycle of criticism of the media hits back, and this is not the way the Delhi government should function.
You've spoken out very openly and critically of your national convener and the Chief Minister. Are you scared that this could be grounds for him expelling you?
Look, Karan, I've been in the left for 40 years. I won't be that long in AAP because I won't be there that long. But I think that one owes certain debts to the Constitution and to public morality.
And that's more important than mere loyalty
Anything.
to a man.
That is what makes a good party, and if it's not there, one has to try to bring it in.
Unfortunately, Javed Ansari, Arvind Kejriwal has gone beyond claiming the press has taken a sopari against his party, gone beyond wanting public trials. He's actually also given orders that all news channels must be monitored by the Delhi government on a daily basis, not literally 24 hours, but if I've got the timings right, from 7 in the evening till 11, or maybe 7 in the morning till 11 at night. Now, as a journalist, as executive editor of this channel, is such monitoring by the government acceptable? Or does it suggest that he's deliberately looking for small faults so that he can then foot fault the media, harass them, intimidate them, perhaps even prosecute them?
Certainly, the latter is certainly true. What I do feel is that Mr. Kejriwal or anybody else, they have a right to monitor, so long as if you're sitting in a room and watching several channels. But what this circular does, Karan, is hand over powers to a bureaucrat to act as a censor. The Aam Aadmi Party, the bureaucrat, no politician can be censored.
Not quite as a censor, because by the time the bureaucrat reacts, the channel will have broadcast what they have. But to act as someone who finds faults with and provides reasons to prosecute.
Because once you find something objectionable, then you're going to penalize people. And who's going to, this is the court's job to decide what is defamatory, not a politician or a bureaucrat's job.
Sorry, Surabji, let me put that to you. How do you, as an Attorney General, as a former Solicitor General, as a man who's dedicated his life to upholding constitutional rights and liberties, respond to Arvind Kejriwal's decision that all news channels must be monitored, and if I've got the timing right, from 7 in the morning till 11 at night? Is this acceptable monitoring by the government, or is it a deliberate attempt to find fault with channels so that you then have reason to harass them or prosecute them? Which of the two is it?
No, main thing is it displays a very, very deplorable mindset. Intolerance, no criticism. The function of the press is to criticize. What's the press for? And in fact, the leading judgment of the American Supreme Court, which we have accepted, is that every incorrect or inaccurate statement about a public official is not actionable as libel unless it's actuated by malice. You see, that's the breathing space required by press. I don't know what came over Kejriwal. I think he overreacted. I'm sure on second thoughts he realized that this kind of a mindset is frightening.
Can I
monitor them? In which country are we? Is it some banana republic that someone monitors the press and reports? This is terrible, terrible. I would never expected Arvind Kejriwal, Aam Party, to have descended to this level.
In fairness, sorry, Surabji, to Arvind Kejriwal, I should point out that his attitude to the media is by no means dissimilar or different to that of many other top politicians. You will recall that Rajiv Gandhi tried to bring a law of defamation. He failed because of public opposition to it. Mr. Modi, our present Prime Minister, may be very tolerant to criticism, I fully accept that, but he only gives interviews and access to journalists that he likes or papers that he gets on with, and he doesn't to those that he dislikes or who criticize him, or at least that's the impression he gives. But is it healthy in a democracy for politicians?
How does 2 wrongs or 3 wrongs justify this?
Quite right.
That may be so, but how does that justify this?
Why is it that our politicians behave like this, be it a Kejriwal or a Rajiv Gandhi or a Narendra Modi? Why do they look for favourites? Why do they keep their critics at arm's length? Why do they behave as if the media is an anathema? Why do they do that, Soli?
The answer to me?
Yes, absolutely, because you know them, you've worked with them, you've been Attorney General.
That's the way politicians react. But we are not to go by what the politicians' reactions. We've got to do whether the actions are in conformity with our great constitutional principles. Fundamental right of freedom of speech and expression. That cannot be in any way, directly or indirectly rather, be trampled upon, curtailed, repressed by this sort of circulars and this kind of threats.
Kamal Mitra Chidoi, you were courageous and frank enough to raise your voice in public criticism of Arvind Kejriwal in this studio a moment ago, and I applaud you for that. Can you and others like you do so within the party to ensure that the voice of the party reaches him and he realizes his own colleagues don't want this and thus stop him?
Well, when I first spoke, there was a complaint made against me by someone very close to Arvind. So I think he knows. He might even feel cornered because of other incidents that have happened outside the office.
In fact,
and try to shut up.
When you say you last spoke, that was on this program on Monday, and someone heard you and complained to Arvind about what you said here.
No, complained to the party who told Arvind.
And what did they do?
They told me that in future, if I was not representing the party line, I should speak as an individual, say a professor from JNU.
But you are a member of the party.
Yes.
So are they saying to you that when you criticize the party, you can't say you're criticizing the party as a member of the party?
No, when I think their reasoning is not altogether wrong. They're saying that we can't have two people representing the party in different ways in one channel.
Except that they are not prepared to send a spokesperson. We asked them and they refused.
Well, I think, you know, what has happened is that the various events, you know what they are, from Jantar Mantar onwards, have led to a kind of siege mentality inside the party. And all this is a reflection of that mentality, that they are being threatened, that they're being found guilty out of hand, and that this is a kind of conspiracy by everyone from the Delhi police to the media.
Once again, are you sure, having said this in open and publicly, you will still be a member of the party tomorrow?
But I've only said the truth. I mean, they'll say it themselves also. And in any case, I didn't join to be a professor. I'm not there for the money. I'm not there for the travel. I'm there to speak the truth and learn about the truth.
And standing up, as you said, for democratic liberties is more important than being loyal to the leader.
Absolutely.
My last question to you, Javed Ansari. Arvind Kejriwal is a man whose career was made by his ability to handle the press with great effectiveness and the very warm response he got from the press. I'm talking not just about India against corruption, his various exposes against Vadra, Gadkari, Reliance, Black Money, the Anna Hazare Lokpal campaign, and then his two election campaigns in Delhi. Now, in alienating the press persistently, is he being short-sighted? Is he losing a great utility, if not weapon, that he had in his hands?
You see, Karan, what happens is when you come to power, like somebody told me, people forget that it also rains. When you come to power, a lot of people believe that this is for perpetuity. This is for all times to come. They forget the workers who work for them. They forget people who made sacrifices, and of course they forget. As a journalist, what worries me is not just this threat of a defamation case. What worries me is that our credibility is under attack. You have the Prime Minister of India attacking you. If there is a poll which seems to go contrary, which doesn't favor them, then it's Bazaru or Bikau. You have the Chief Minister of the state who says that everything will be monitored and you might be liable and you might face defamation cases. So this very credibility is under threat. And as for a journalist like us, we need to look within. While there is a need to look within, but it also, this is not a very happy situation to be in.
You end on a very good note. This is not a good time to be a journalist. All I'll add is, I wonder if there was ever a good time to be a journalist. Journalists are a profession.
No, I said it's not a happy situation to be in.
But journalists are a profession that flourish in adversity. Adversity gives us strength.
Absolutely.
Flattery is the one thing journalists should never get. My thanks to both of you for coming to the studio. My thanks also to Soli Surajji and Dushyant David. I beg your pardon, Soli? I think what he...
Lawyers protect journalists.
Lawyers protect journalists. That's a good bond. Well, who knows, we might need your protection one day. My thanks to all my guests for joining me, and if you haven't, thanks for watching. Goodbye.